So when you sing, music it offers this glimpse, and life offers these glimpses, right? We go through our days, and many times it's about discipline. This is where music as a metaphor comes in. It's the discipline to show up and do music, right? Show up and practice day in and day out. And many, many days are these drudgery days. But then you get these moments, these glimpses of something so grand and so beyond this world that it makes everything here completely tolerable, if not, the way that many of the saints are, like a privilege to deal with the suffering here because you so know it's only temporary. And one of these moments happened to me recently, and I'm releasing a music video. It should be up by the time I'm doing this show, or this show is being released on Free World. I came full circle, and as I mentioned, I had sung Hotel California when I was a girl, back in high school when I was way too shy to do that on my own. And somehow this one glorious night with the drama kids, they brought it out of me. I was able to sing and get a glimpse of that joy of sharing my voice with others. And then in college, I worked at one of my low points, I worked at this Ramada Inn. And it was just a low moment in my life. I was so lost. My self-esteem was so low. I'd had many, many things happen, and I just wasn't even equipped to deal with them. There was a lot of just psychological, what would I say, like trying to cope, a lot of coping mechanisms. It would be many, many years before I'd be able to even deal with some of I guess I was in the middle of post-traumatic stress. It was a very low time. I would probably say it was the lowest time in my life. And from that moment in college, at some point it occurred to me, like I said, this decision to pick up music and do it, not for anybody around me, not for the sake of becoming a musician. That actually seemed like the worst thing in the world to become. I talk about that on another episode, but how much I dreaded my calling to become a musician when I finally listened to it. I was definitely like Job. I was running the other way. A whale sounded pretty great to me, rather than being a musician. But as I finally turned towards this in the beginning, baby steps, always baby steps. It was just the idea that it was something that I would agree to do at night and on the weekends, just between me and the Creator, but I would spend some time doing it because, you need to actually put some time in. If you're offering up songs to the Creator, you don't want them to be, crap. So I was at that place, and so that was a turning point. And then all these years passed, right? And I don't know if you know my story, then many, many years passed, and I actually started to get the courage to do open mics, and that was in Austin in my late 20s, and then the courage from there to actually maybe be a music therapist, but that meant I needed more music schools, so then I got the courage to actually go back to music school. And then once I was at music school, I got bit by the bug of just wanting to do music all the time, no matter what. And that led into me actually pursuing a professional musician career and a music teacher in New York City for a decade. And, the last 4 years, it was like towards the end of that time, it was like I was reaching goals I had for myself. And now, granted, you could say, well, you didn't have very high goals for yourself, because it's not like I ended up like Britney Spears or even what maybe many musicians would say is a successful musician. But for me, my goal, because I was coming into so late in life and because I was coming from such low self-esteem, just being able to be in the room with these musicians, to be in these levels with these musicians, to be a professional musician at all, making money from music, teaching music. It was a calling. I loved my days. It was the Brooklyn days. Okay, those Brooklyn days were a peak for me. And I actually did meet many of the personal goals I set for myself, goals I never thought I would ever achieve. And then once I achieved them, it was kind of like, okay, well, what's next? And in many ways, I'm still saying what's next on that, because it just, everything shifted completely for me at that point. I'm still doing music. I'm, still teaching music. I'm still composing. I'm still out playing. But I've, like many people, the last 4 years have been sort of in a shifting world of trying to balance my personal life with my professional life and kind of figure out where I'm at this point. And in the middle of all this, I go to have a girls' weekend in College Station. Now, I haven't been back to A&M in many, 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 many years. I mean, if ever. I think I went back one time since I graduated, and that was for this girls' weekend maybe like a decade ago. And I mean, I remember being amazed with how liberal A&M had become because it had been so conservative at the time. But other than that, I really didn't go down memory lane at all. It was like a night out with some sorority sisters. And then I agreed to meet this friend. Now, this friend is a friend that I've had this whole time, even though we've never really lived in the same city. Our lives have been very different, but we've stayed friends since those A&M days. And in many ways, especially in the last few years, I've come to really appreciate her influence in my life, even though at times I didn't appreciate it, right? Like, she would be coming from a certain perspective I couldn't really understand. But we've always been very respectful to each other, even when we're not on the exact same page, and always gave each other a lot of space when we needed it. And in this season, we've been able to come back together, and I've been able to realize, like, wow, she was actually right about a lot of things. It just, I wasn't there. And I also recognized that she was praying a lot for me during these time periods, which I really appreciated. But we really haven't been involved in each other's daily lives, for a very long time. And it's oftentimes hard for us to meet since we don't live in the same place. So we decided to meet back at A&M. And the weekend was booked up. So I got like the one hotel that I could really get that was like kind of affordable and looked fine. And we show up there, and guess what? It's that darn Ramada Inn. And I couldn't believe it because I almost had even forgotten that I worked at this Ramada Inn. The minute that I remembered like what a low point this was for me, and all these memories came flooding back to me of where I was at that time period. And thankfully, it's been so long, over 25 years, and I'm definitely a different person. So it wasn't like a depressed pulling me back in, but more like a marvel, like, wow. Okay, so we go out, we have a great time, and when we come back to this hotel, there's live music in the lobby, which is fantastic. And my friend, who's never really, she's known, she was friends with me when I decided to pick up my instrument, and like she's with me like 7 years later when I decide to go back and study it, and then she comes and visits me at these various places I'm studying music or doing music, but she's never really heard me perform, and she wanted to hear me perform. And I was like, sure, that's fine. But when we go to ask the two guys that were playing, and they were pretty good musicians, I should look up what they were because I'm on their Instagram, and give them props. They were hesitant, okay? And I don't blame them. Okay, here we were. We were having a good time. We were reliving our college days a bit. It's late night in the hotel. We do not look like serious people at this point. And when he asked me what song, I said Hotel California. Okay, this is just the song that came to my mind. Okay, I'm not really sure why, except that I guess when I was, which I've done a lot of, the singing pianist, late night, Hotel California always worked, right? And I know it really well. And so, often in these scenarios, it's good to do a song really, really well, or one that you've been practicing recently. And this was just the one that came to my mind. Well, I don't know. I guess the guy particularly didn't like it. I don't know what it was, because it seemed like in particular when I said that, he was like, okay, no, she's not a serious person. And they were kind of like giving me the runaround, like, yeah, maybe. And at this point, there wasn't a lot of people there, but there was some people there. So Val's like, yeah, no, you got it. But it's like, what can you say? Like, oh no, like I'm a really good musician. Like I've never been able to play that game, right? I've never been able to get into that pushy personality. Even all these years later, I have a lot more confidence in my ability, but I also never liked getting in a competition or having to push myself to the front to do it. I mean, I've much more preferred when it feels like it's the perfect opportunity, that it just kind of lines up. So I'm just kind of like, the old Ramada Lyndol is kind of coming back a little bit. Okay, I'm kind of like sinking in a little bit. I'm kind of like feeling kind of shy. I'm kind of like don't have that push to push up there and do it. And like in my mind, I knew they would be happy with it, and it would probably even help their show to have me come up there and sing with them. Probably would have brought the room together, because people do love Hotel California. I've since learned that it's the #1 rock and roll song, even though it's like a lot of different charts. On all of them, Hotel California is there. So, but I just couldn't do it. It's like that part of my personality was still there. Well, this is what was so sweet. Because back in those days, in College Station, when I was like holding back all the time, I was always wanting and fantasizing that somebody around me would push me out of my shell, right? Like they would just give me the opportunity. They would just line it up for me. Maybe it was laziness. Maybe it was fear. Maybe it's what happens to a lot of us. Like we're fantasizing about an opportunity, but we're not willing to actually meet that reality with actionable steps. But I kind of fell back into that place. Like it was kind of like, well, here, like my fantasy finally got fulfilled. Okay, my friend was like unrelenting, and I really could have cared less about performing, to be honest with you. I mean, I perform enough to where it's, not like, oh, I'm hungry to get up there. Or sometimes I can feel that way, but I wasn't feeling that way that night. But my friend wanted me up there. So she starts tipping the band, and then in between every song, she's yelling Hotel California. And I mean, they are not calling me up there. They called the bartender up there. She got to sing a song there, and finally we wait them out, right? And there's nobody left in the lobby, and they finally call me up. And I get up there, and they weren't ready for it. Because the Lyndol that did get up there, having been promoted by my friend, had absolutely done the work, absolutely had no ability to hold back in that scenario. And so I sang my heart out, Hotel California. And it did feel like so lined up spiritually. It felt like one of these moments where I didn't orchestrate it, but all the pieces came together. And here I was in this old Ramada, one of the sites of my lowest moments in life. And I was singing Hotel California to this, what felt like a haunted hotel, to be honest with you. Like, even though it had been renovated in some ways, there was this old feeling that was still there, and it felt a bit haunted for me at least. So I'm singing Hotel California to this hotel, and it was just a full circle moment. I mean, there was not an inch of me that felt any ability to hold back at all. Why would there be? I mean, there was nobody even in the lobby at all. But it didn't matter, because here I was, still just me and my creator, having my friend there. She was so thrilled to get to hear me sing and get to see me in that way, when she had seen me for so much of my life, like unable to get out of my own way, unable to just let go of my inhibitions and my fears, always holding back, always trying to control. And she got to see me in that complete abandon. And for her, it was such a moment to recognize that all these years that I have been able to get restored, right? It's a second chance. It's never too late for any of us, no matter how shut down, no matter how much we can't get out of our own way, no matter how much there's a saboteur, that's constantly stealing from us. It's like it can't go on forever. And now, granted, maybe my story's not that heartening because it was like 25 years later. But it happens. It happens. And it's meaningful to me. It's my journey. It's my personal spiritual journey, which is still the most important thing to me. Whether I've got it all correct at this point, I'm not going to say that I do. I'm still very much working on my sin patterns and my programming and trying to align my mind with the mind of God and my heart with the heart of God, and to become a more loving person every day. But this was one of those moments where God was saying, you're on the right path, okay? You just got to keep going. And all those little things you do every single day, sometimes you get these moments that show you, like, you see they are adding up, right? The scales are being tilted in the proper direction.